This is That One Audition with Alyshia, Ochse. This makes me excited. Vanessa, so we were just talking off mic, and I always like to, I start wherever I get excited about. And I do think a big part of why I do this podcast and why I love mentoring other actors as well as myself is recovery and seasons of creativity. And you were just sharing with me off mic that you had a 3-year hiatus from our profession. And I'm so curious. I want to hear the comeback.
The comeback.
Because
oh my God.
It's recovery, because like you were saying, so you were doing all kinds of odd jobs, right? Well, the jobs that we all do, okay, customer service, right?
Customer service jobs.
Right. What can I get you to drink? Do you need to eat? All the things.
Exactly.
I am here to be of service.
I am here to be of service. And even now in our job, we are here to be of service. Absolutely. So I was fired and from the service job, and very unexpected, obviously. And I left the restaurant, and I was standing on the corner of 59th and Lex, and asking myself, what now? What am I going to do now? And I'm going to catch the
audience up. At this point, you've been doing theater. Have you been nominated for the Lucille Twirls Awards? Not yet. Not yet.
All after.
Okay. But you had gone to school for acting. You had had some professional jobs, correct?
Yes, I did. I did have some professional jobs. I had a few TV credits, a few indie film credits, a few theater credits. And that's like a whole other, there's so much that goes on before then of the in and out, but this is the part we're talking about. And then, so
you're standing there, you're like,
I'm standing there. I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? I was like, what now? And I realized that I've spent probably my entire professional adult life with only one foot in and never really both.
So what does 2 feet, what did 1 foot look like? Because I think a lot of people do teeter. I even sometimes mentally struggle with this too, where I feel like if we don't put both feet in, then we can save ourselves from crumbling, right? If we put both feet in, if I put everything into this audition and I don't get it, I don't want to be that heartbroken. I'm curious if that was your 1 foot in, or what was your 1 foot in, 1 foot out?
My 1 foot in and 1 foot out was that I think it was a lot of things. It was, I am Chinese, and I was instilled with the fear of insecurity and no foundation. And that has always prevented me to be like, how do I pursue a career in the arts and still feel secure, and still be financially secure? How do I do this? And but part of that fear, I think that took a lot of time unpacking, was also like, I honestly didn't know how to see myself in the business. I didn't know how to visualize, how to accept this as a career, that this is a job, and not a hobby or an interest or a passion. You can feel passionate about it, but it's not, you know what I mean. And so I cared probably too much about, as confident or self-assured as I thought I was still like holding on to a lot of what my mother would think or what other people would think. And that always held me back. And so that day, on the corner of 59th and Lex, and I'm talking with a girlfriend of mine, and I'm like, I think I'm having that come to Jesus moment right now. I think that I'm hearing the universe saying, God or whomever, saying like, we're waiting on you. Like you need to, yeah.
It's like we're here. Yeah.
Both feet in. Yeah. And so it was that moment, and I dived in.
And what did that look like? Did you have an agent or manager at that time from previous?
No.
You had nothing.
Nope. Nada. Zip, zero, zilch. And with the few credits that I had and some experience that I had, but I've been gone for so long. And 3 years is a long time. And nobody cared. No one was like, what have you been doing? Who are you? We have other priorities. We have other people we need to think about. The one agent that that I did have a meeting with prior to my retirement, my long break, I went back to his office and I said, listen, I know it's been a really long time, but we've already met prior to this. I'm back now. And would you mind, like, what do you think? And he says, yeah, okay, we can give this a shot. But here's the thing. It was a small agency.
Mhm.
And I did not, he focused more on film and TV, and I wanted to focus more in theater. And so when we started, I said to him, like, do you do a whole lot of theater? And he says, actually, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't. And I said, okay. And I said, because to me, what I needed was I just needed representation, and it didn't matter. Like, of course, it mattered. I want someone respectable, but it didn't need to be a powerhouse. It didn't need to be. What I needed was an opportunity. And
Yeah.
being with him, any opportunity, like having representation was an opportunity in. And so that's how it started. And then from there, I took this great workshop with Elaine Aldoffer at One on One Studios in New York City. And she's the head casting director at a wonderful off-Broadway theater called the Playwrights Horizons.
Okay.
And yes, and she also has it's also Elaine Aldoffer casting. And I took her incredible 5-week workshop there. And it was from her class that really like blew my mind and helped me rediscover my love for acting, for writers. And it wasn't just about scene study. She really offered like really great tools on how to approach an audition, how to approach dramaturgy and text, how to and also just the holistic approach to acting that just did like a minor but huge example. Like she started every workshop rather than like in a teacher student setting of teacher sits in front and then you have all the students that are facing you. We all sat in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
And we all took a moment to just really check in where we are that day. And she was the one who taught me, what is your attitude and gratitude today?
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Mm. And from there, that's the like, oh, that's where you are when you're going to, or this is how we're going to exercise that gratitude. And as we work our way into the work. From that workshop, she had called me in to be a reader in something that she was auditioning. Blew my mind because what I saw on the page was not what I saw on stage. And I was like, I have so much to learn. Like, this is incredible. And it made me learn how to appreciate writers in a whole new way. And then it really fully made me helped me further understand that I am really to be here of service of the writer.
Yes. Yes. I'm so curious because you went to
Mm.
Fame. Is that high school?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's high school. So it was so concentrated on the music and the arts. So then
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure to come out of there, then you're going right. Of course, you're going to hit the ground, the pavement, right? Hitting the auditions, getting some secure
Yeah.
bookings, feeling like you're making
Mm-hmm.
progress, and then
Yeah.
going to this break. What do you think contextually that was able to bring that was different? Do you think it was also just awareness for you at that time and you making that decision to feed in? So now you're really dissecting the world and
Yeah.
really getting in as a student.
Yes, yes, excellent. Yeah, that's so perceptive. Yeah, I think that in high school, yes, I learned a lot of wonderful things at LaGuardia. I was also a kid,
Yeah. Yes.
and I did not have the wealth of experience that I did then, however many years later, and to really take in material, to really appreciate other artists. And because when you go to acting school, there's something about learning or learning the craft of acting, it feels very self-centering, right? It's like, how do I feel? What is this character doing? How am I in this picture? So forth and so on. And yes, the whole point of a scene is that like what it's you really, you have to focus on your partner.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. That's what makes the scene. But I think that like if I had more time and more maturity and more knowledge, then I had a better understanding that there's just like, we're not just talking about a scene, we're really talking about building an entire world in which the scene exists. And how do these characters move through this world? Why does this world need to exist? Why is this writer writing this? Who needs to see it? Why do they need to see it? And that really then helped me go, oh, this is what I'm here to do.
Yes. Okay. So how long did
Mm,
it take you before you started integrating this new knowledge, studying
mm,
with her? A reader, being a reader, there's nothing more invaluable, I think, than watching people come in. Also, when I teach, we teach in a way that I want you to see several actors doing the same set of sides. I think you learn
mm-hmm,
the fastest that way when you've tried to
mm,
achieve it, or you're sitting in that seat and you're watching 12, 20 people do it. And you're seeing everybody hit the transitional moment different. You're seeing their essence of it completely different. You're seeing probably also people not even understand what the story is about. You can see the
yes,
depth at which people will go in their research versus just reading lines, right? An
correct.
actor is not somebody who reads lines. My grandma can read lines, and she's not an actor. She can read
No,
lines, you
exactly,
know?
exactly,
So
exactly.
what's the
Okay.
audition, or
Oh.
because you step into theater, right? So now does this agent, is he able to kick you out some theater auditions, or is she the one who starts giving you opportunities in theater? She's the
She's the
one.
one. But so let me, so after I took her class and then I was reader, I then again, opportunities, opportunity. So I went back to the tried and true. I went on backstage.com
Yes. Mhm.
and I started going to, I was like, let me see what open calls, what are happening. From there, I booked, oh my God, there was this open call for
Mhm.
this play and it was off Broadway. And but it was the audition was held somewhere in Brooklyn, in a place that I'd never been. And I was like, wait, is this legit? Like, what's going on? I never heard of this theater company. I'm like, why am I going all the way to downtown Brooklyn? I'm like, am I going to get killed? What's going on? I was being stupid. And it's also like it wasn't like first thing in the morning or sometime in the afternoon. So I spent like an entire day just sort of like sitting, waiting for things to happen, like prepping, and now I'm exhausted. And I remember speaking to the same girlfriend who I was speaking to on 59th and Lex, and I was like, yeah, I'm supposed to go on this open call, and I'm feeling like I'm tired now. Like, do I want to go to this open call? What's going on in Brooklyn? She was like, well, girl, it's up to you if you want to. And I was like, okay. So I hang up and I sit there and I go, and I really said to myself, Vanessa, you ain't got no job. The hell out of this house right now. I was like, who do you think you are? This is a work right now. You better get up and you better go downtown. This is what you got to do. And I was like, yeah, yes, yes. So I went to this open call and I did that. And I booked that off Broadway gig, this play. At the same time, I had also auditioned for an off Broadway play that Elaine had called me in for. While I was in rehearsal for that off Broadway play, I booked my first off Broadway show with Elaine, that show. So I went from one off Broadway to an off Broadway play. And then soon after, so after, yeah, it was great. And it was a women's project theater, and it was part of their writers, director, producer lab. So in that show, I met and collaborated with intensely with, and I felt like that was like acting boot camp
Mhm.
because it was like with five writers trying to write a cohesive play. We've got 20, 30 new pages every single day, and trying to really put a new play together. And I remember I was like, wow, this is really intense. And I knew then I was like, what we are doing right here, it is setting me up for what is going to be coming and expected of me, of all of us.
Well, I think
later.
that's the thing too, is that we always look at, I think, at acting, you said this off mic, which I thought was so great, is like, we think about this as a dream or a hobby, or we're doing this. This is a job. And then when we start to realize the responsibilities of our job,
oh my God, yes,
the building blocks of you know, going and doing the workshop of the play, getting 20, 30 pages new day, the writer's trying to figure it out. You're understanding the brick lane to make the house. You know,
excellent.
and then you get to come in as an actor. You're coming in as an actor and decorating. But if you don't understand the house you're decorating, you can't be a series regular. Like, this is preparing you for kung fu. Like, there's no way. And that's why I always talk about the ladder, going up the ladder. What step are you on now? What step are you on now? Versus trying to jump landings, and you don't know what it takes to be on that next landing yet. So all of these little moments, you're like,
yes,
oh, this is so hard, but what am I doing? But you don't know how many years later you're going to need this skill set, or developing that skill set is what lands you the bigger jobs. It's just what it is. I hate to say bigger, but more responsibility.
But more it really is. It is about responsibility, and that's what I saw right before me. You know, that like these people are relying on me to show up on time, to show up prepared, to show up with questions and smart questions. You know, that's what they're expecting me to do. And then from that play, after I finished that show, and it was a great run, really fantastic, and we're performing at City Center. It's beautiful, gorgeous theater in Midtown. And then and here's right, it's also about I don't like saying this as a way of like strategy, because I don't like the way that sounds. I really do believe in like authentic, organic, holistic relationships of people coming together. But it just so happens this is what happened. And so because I did the off Broadway show, this woman emails me out of the blue. Her boyfriend was our lighting designer on that off Broadway play. And she says, I started a new theater company, and we're doing readings of new plays, and it's called the Bechdel Group. Right. You're right. And for those who don't know, like the Bechdel, it's based on the Bechdel test, and it's a theater company that challenges how the roles of women in film and TV and theater, and how we're being presented or represented. And so it's a theater company that does this, and they invite plays or scripts, any kind of scripts, film, TV, plays, to come in, and they'll take maybe about 20 pages from that. And then we would just do readings at a bar at the back of some Lower East Side bar, which is what we did. And so she said, listen, I've got this great play. I loved you in this show. I said, thank you so much. She goes, my boyfriend was a lighting designer. I have this play. And I was like, I thought of you. Would you mind reading in our workshop? I said, absolutely. Sight unseen. Don't even know what this play is. I just really loved the mission of this theater company.
Yes.
Right. And I said, yes. So I do the reading. It was fantastic. It was so much fun. It's actually a brilliant play, fantastic play. The playwright was, her name is Chisa Hutchinson. She was in the audience, and afterwards she said, where have you been? Like, I've been, and I said, where have you been? I love you. Like, this is wonderful. And I said, truly, I really do love your play. And I said, and I want to help however I can to see it come to life. And I say this knowing that I don't have to be in it for me to be a fan of it and a fan of you. I just want you to know this. And so I really mean this. And I still mean this to this day. And I don't say this like to stroke my own ego, like whatever. But if I really am a kind of person that I can be a fan of something, and I don't have to see myself in it. And if I don't see that, if I feel that I don't know how to contribute to a project, even though someone else may believe that I can, but if I'm unsure, then if I think someone else could do a better job than me, then I will say that. I will be like, I think there's someone else who's better suited for this. I don't know if I see it in the way that you do.
Talk about confidence. Talk about at the beginning, talking about not having insecurity, but then once you put 2 feet in, you knew who you were,
Yeah.
what you represent and how you can be of service. I think that's a very empowering place to create from, is knowing how your instrument is perceived and how it can best be used for the stories that we're telling. And our instrument's not going to be the best. When you watch people audition, when you watch 20 people audition, you can see the
Yeah.
problems that producers have or playwrights have, where
Mm-hmm.
they're like, wow, well, 12
Right.
of those were so great and so different. That
Mm-hmm.
if we don't allow ourselves to be of service that way, but knowing, because if it's not the material for you, it bumps. You're going to bump. We're going to see
For
that.
sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. That play, 5 years later, she calls me in, and it turns out that, like, you know, a big name was attached, and then who was reading for the role of that I was in the reading for. And then she asked me, listen, this is the role of the mother. It's actually older. If you wouldn't mind reading. I was like, no, like I meant it. I was like, I don't,
Yeah.
if you ask me to push a broom across the stage for you, and that's the sum of my work, yes, I will push the broom for you. So but we did the reading. That named person left because she had a directing gig. And yeah, I think I can say it now. It was a long time ago. Can I say it now? Yeah, it was Lucy Liu. She was attached to it. And so but she was directing Nick Cage, I think, at the time. And so she and was like understood. And so anyway, that play became, I think that was my second off-Broadway play. And that started off from someone who was a lighting designer to in the back of a Lower East Side bar,
Yes.
to here we are on another off-Broadway stage.
Is
Yeah.
this one of the ones that you got nominated for?
The one that I got nominated for is K-pop.
Yes.
And that was a show that I was nominated. So it was what was it? It was an immersive experience.
Musical.
So
yeah.
it was a musical. It was a musical, but it was like a play with music, but it was a musical. And so they rented out an entire building. So it wasn't just one theater. It was 3-4 theaters, and rooms were built for this. So the original idea of how the show was shaped is K-pop, this production company, this music company, is coming in to the US, and they want to introduce the world to K-pop, and how what is K-pop about. And so the idea is that we were going to create a K-pop factory. So the audience would come in,
yes.
You would be split up into 3 groups, and each group would then go through a maze of sorts of discovering what that was about. And my scene was, I played one of the co-owners of this entertainment group, and my specific scene was with Ashley Park.
Oh yes.
And so yes, and so and she's fantastic. She's brilliant. She's so talented. And our scene, and so because it's 3 groups, we basically had to do the scene 3 times. So every time the group leaves, we have to do it all over again. And that entire show, and then in the end, the show begins with a concert, it ends with a concert, with a lot of drama in between, and a lot of music in between. And then I was probably one of maybe 2 characters that didn't sing.
I was going to ask, because I was like, nowhere in my research did I see that she sings, but maybe she does. And
I didn't sing. I actually, I can hold a tune, but like I can hold a note, but like no, I don't sing. And so I was nominated for a Lucille Ortel for my role in K-pop.
Amazing.
It was amazing.
I mean, I'm curious if you ended up staying with that same agent. So your theater obviously is popping off.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in television and film, right? Because now I want to see, because a lot of people write in, and the transition from theater to television and film sometimes can be really clunky. Sometimes that's the goal. Sometimes it's not the goal at all. I love that you're like, I'm going to go do theater. So did he kind of rope you into the television and film world, or at a certain point were you ready to explore more? Because
He
Representation
roped
is
me in.
huge,
Yeah.
and getting to see you on television is a
Yeah.
massive component
Yeah.
for changing the tides.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the audition, so he started to bring me in for film and television. And I then realized I then had to, was like, now how, I really looked at it, I was like, how do I attack this?
Yeah. How do you do
And
both?
how do I,
Yeah.
right. But then, and then also like figuring out how to audition for it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That was in whether it's, and like, what does that prep look like? How do I approach it within this 1 by 1 frame, whatever that frame is, wherever you're watching this. And and when you're only getting a few pages and there's so much information that's outside of this page, then I realized, I was like, okay, like this is serious homework.
Well,
Like, and
more homework, right? With theater, you have all this time in, like you just described, you can really even work with the writer to collaborate. If it's a new play, if it's an older play, you get the
right,
job and then you learn everything in rehearsal. You're really learning it all. You get an audition, television, film, 24-hour
right.
turnaround, and it's pretty vanilla. There's nothing on the
Mm-hmm.
page. So you have to create, there's so much heavy lifting immediately. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have the choices, right? And people, I
Yeah,
think, get
yeah.
stuck in their choices versus staying on the story, which you talked about building a house.
Yes.
What is this story?
Mm.
So I'm curious if that, if your homework was able to translate really quickly into television and film, because a lot of people don't look at the story first. They're like, oh, how am I going to decorate it? Not,
Yeah,
not even looking at
yeah.
what house it is. They're like, is it a condo? Is it a trailer? Is it a mansion? We need, is it primetime television? Are we on streaming? What is this, a CW show? What are we doing? What's the show about? You know?
This is where time gets a bit blurry, but I began to really fall in love with one-liners. And I really did. And because I felt like this is the most fun. This is just either one line, two sentences max. And I get to go in and figure out like, how am I going to, what is this? And well, what is this scene? And it just, and I felt like it was very liberating. I was like, I can have the best time. Um, and then I realized, and then what I would do, and like, let me tell you, so let me also say that um that theater, like my pursuit of it was also not like, I was behind in my rent for 3 months straight for 2 years,
Wow. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so like, because, and yes, and rather than working as a hospitality as a server, I then worked in this wonderful restaurant as a host, with a wonderful general manager who was a dear friend of mine. She also used to be in the performing arts. And so she understood, and she loves actors, which I'm great. And in fact, like I remember, what was it? I was on my way to work, and out of the blue, I got a call for Blacklist. And where the restaurant was located was about 10 blocks away from where I needed to be, where the audition was. And so I walked in and I said to my then boss, my friend Anna, I said, Anna, like I like this. She was like, where is it? And I said the address, and she was like, all right. She was like, just print up your sides. I'll see you in an hour. And I was like, all right. And
And
I
you're
was
like,
like, and I didn't have, I told my agent, I was like, I was like, listen, I was like, what I'm wearing is what I have. I don't have any other clothing. I don't have any of this. It will just have to do. And he was like, go in. And I said, all right. And that's exactly what I did. Um, in terms of transitioning, I think I understood more now um, about how to approach the camera as, I mean, it's someone looking at you, but it's also your scene partner. It's all of this. And it was something that I think that I had to come around on my own to figure it out, of like what made, because at the end of the day, where I'm still a storyteller and this was my opportunity, I really wanted to make this as best as I could, of like, how am I telling the story in the best way that I know how, within 60 seconds, right? Um, Yeah. And,
And that creating of the world, I think your basis of like what we were talking about in going up the stairs,
yeah,
learning this and learning that, having a theater background and approaching the one line or two liners, you're creating a world. And a lot of people are
mm,
going in and just doing the one or two lines. So I want to clarify that you were having so much fun because you're like, oh, who is this person? What's
yeah,
happening? Like you
yeah,
really still create, there was no small part for you. I love,
no,
and I truly don't believe in that. Like there's transitional characters. Those are transitional characters. They're
sure.
transitioning this scene to this moment, or they're transitioning and delivering a moment for the
Hmm.
main characters. So to look
Yeah,
at it in the way of being enthusiastic, you booked that blacklist, didn't you? I mean,
did
you booked. And that's
I
the
did.
thing that allows, you to go up the ladder so that we can get to New
Hmm.
Amsterdam, and then we get to Kung Fu. I'm
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
curious the Kung
Tell me.
Fu audition because yeah, I'm assuming you guys shot in 2020, so you're auditioning during COVID times too.
So this is, ooh, I'm so glad we're sitting. So I I was doing a play in Baltimore called Richard, Jane, and Dick and Sally, by a brilliant playwright named Noah Diaz. I love him to bits. I think he's genius.
Mhm.
And I got an audition for Kung Fu, um, for not Pei Ling, for I think for Jalan, the villain.
Ah,
And so I did that part. I did that audition, and then they come back to me the next day, and then they said they would like for you to read these other sides. And then I noticed the sides were for Pei Ling, but like I wasn't. I was like, oh, I'm so like, am I reading for Pei Ling, or is it still Jalan with extra Pei Ling lines? Like I wasn't quite sure. So here's another thing. Also, the first when I let me go back a little bit. Jalan was not the first role that I read for. The first role that I actually read for was Mei Li, the mother. And but I think that was like just in case I didn't realize that the no one knew that the offer had already been out, perhaps, right? And but the breakdown said that she was that a restaurant owner. They have a Chinese restaurant, a dumpling house. And I remember saying to myself, and I said, wait a minute, like, well, like that's a lot of information, but like I need to be more specific. Is it one restaurant? What kind of restaurant? Because now we're talking about class,
mhm, mhm.
right? We're talking about like, is this generational? Like how long has she been here? And is this a place that's thriving, or is this is more like a little like Chinese takeout place that that not that they're not thriving, but it's a different caliber of
Mhm.
eatery, right? And
Specificity.
so
Yep. Yep.
right. And then so I called my manager. I at this point I'm have moved on from my agent, and I'm now working with a manager who I'm still with. And I said, listen, I really need this information. It's important. Can you please ask casting how many restaurants does this person operate? Does this person own? I was like, and what kind of restaurant is it? Like, is it like mom and pop shop? Like you know
Yeah.
greasy spoon kind of place. I don't know what a dinery, like what is it? And so he did. He went and asked, and he was like, "It's just like your typical like San Francisco restaurant." And I'm like, "I've never been to San Francisco yet, so I'm just gonna have to go with what I know, which is my Chinatown or my Flushing here in New York." Okay, and it's just one. And I was like, "All right." So I did whatever I did, and then came the Jalan. That was like the next day, and then I think and then from there came the paling sides, and then I was like, okay. And then and meanwhile I'm still performing at night, right? And so during the day I have my castmates who are like, we're in artist housing, and we're ring lighted out, we're
Yeah.
like
Trying to
we
figure it
got
out,
blue screen, we're
self-taping
like,
it.
what is
Yep.
the self tape in it? And then that was probably around like a Thursday or Friday. We close our show on Sunday. By somewhere around like I think Saturday morning, I think. And not to say this is what casting did, but this is the word that I got when my managers were able to reach me. And then they said, they would like to know if you can be in their office on Monday, 10 a.m. And I said, okay.
Yeah, and that's Jen
Yeah.
Cooper's office, right? So you have to get to LA.
No,
Oh, who
no,
was
no, no.
casting
This
the
is Finley Davidson and Matt
Oh,
Wise. This is the Warner Brothers in New York. And so mine, so then what I wound up doing is I wound up performing, I wound up closing out the show. We did 3 shows in 2 days. I packed up all 14 of my boxes. I finished my show, closed the show at 3, was on a train at 6, in bed by 1 a.m., in the casting office by 10 a.m. the next morning.
do you feel
And
like that
then
served you being exhausted and coming off of a show? Served you not, you don't even have to think about what anything is getting ready to happen.
I guess so. I guess so. It was this mode of like, it's just the doing and knowing that this is the task at hand. It's the same thing, like 25 new pages,
Yep.
let's go. Like, oh, we're trying out new words in front of audience. Oh, okay, where am I taping this? In the
Mhm.
book that I'm holding? Yes,
Right,
this is what I'm
right.
doing right now. Well, however we're gonna do this. And so I did that. Then they actually called me in for another project that I came in for the next day. And so that audition, when I went in, was my callback for Payling on Monday at 10 a.m. And so and this is the moment that I was like, oh, like they gave me notes of, whatever the adjustment they needed Payling to be. And I said, okay. And I remember sitting there, I remember feeling so nervous. And I remember being like, oh, wow. I was like, okay. And this is the moment where it's like, this is like another like precipice, like another turning point of where like, you have to get grounded and understand like, this is another set of responsibility and just do the work, right? Know this character so well, as much as you can in this small amount of time, the short amount of time that you have, and then do that. When I was done, Finley looks at me and says, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't know. I'm packing, I guess, because the box is supposed to come in." And so she said, "Well, I would like to invite you to read for something else, like a whole other project." And I was like, okay, wait, thank you so much." I come in the next day. But here's another thing, another little tidbit lesson. So she was like, and I know that it's very last minute, um, but how much time like do you think you need? And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I need it all the time. I don't know how many pages is this, you know?
Mhm.
And then I saw the look on her face, and I was like, wait, how soon do you need this? Is really
Good question.
right.
'Cause she's
And
desperate.
so
Yeah. We forget that casting needs to do their job. Yeah.
yes, yes. And then, and I, and even now, like, if I can do the best of my ability and have it in as early as I can get it, then great. Sure. But if I know that I need if I need the 10th hour to the very last second, then I will use that as well. It's sort of like, oh, but understanding that like, oh, like this is another form of collaboration, right? It's
Yeah.
like she's calling upon this new actor that she's meeting, or not new for her. I think we might have met like a few times before. But like it's been years though, so it's new. And so she's like, can you come up? Can you show up? Can you come in tomorrow? And let's play. And I was like, all right, let's play. And I was like, that I'm not going to be completely off book. I'll be the best that I can. So that was Wednesday. That was Tuesday. By Tuesday night, I'm at a show. And then I was like, I kind of had an inkling. I was like, I think you're going to hear some good news. By Wednesday at 11 o'clock, that's when I booked it. That's one.
Booked
And
Kung
then I was
Fu
like, what?
or booked
Booked
the
Kung Fu. Booked
ah,
Kung Fu. Now, PS, this is now March of 2020.
yes.
March of 2020. The world has yet to shut down yet for another week. And now my character, Pei she does Kung Fu, but there was like no mention yet of like stunt training or anything. And I was like, oh, well, I guess maybe they're just going to have a lot of stunt, people. And okay. Um, then by 3 o'clock, I get a call. They would like you in Vancouver by tomorrow.
Mm.
Oh, well. then I better get going. Okay. So thankfully, all 14 of my boxes from Baltimore arrived home. I unpacked whatever I needed from those boxes. I put them in another suitcase. I get on the plane. I go to Vancouver. We go to stunt training. We have rehearsal. I meet the showrunner and our director. And, you know, there's also a lot of things. Theater has served me in all the ways. And one of the things, of the most important thing about working in theater and working on new plays, is learning how to ask questions of like how to serve the story and this character. And I don't know if it was the right thing to do. It's the only thing that I knew how to do. And so I basically wrote whatever question that I had about Pei Ling, or this is the trajectory, if I'm on the right track. I just wrote to our showrunner, Christina Kim, an email. And I said, listen, I was like, I know you're super busy. You've got a lot going on. But this is a whole new character and a whole new world. And she's a character like this I haven't seen on network television before. And only in heightened movies or things like that. And so I'm definitely want to make sure that like I'm on the right track of what, so I let her know these are the thoughts that I'm having. This is what I think about her. This is what I think about her. And, as a human. And you don't have to answer this, but I just let me know if I'm on the right track. If I'm not on the right track, you'll let me know, I hope. And that was it. And then continued to rehearse. And then I wasn't supposed to shoot for another week. But then, right? So now I've been there for a week now. And on Friday the 13th at 10 a.m., Hananli Culpepper calls me and says, so we just got, who's our director for episode 1 and 2. She calls and says, okay, so we just got word that we have to shut down production by end of day. And I know you're not supposed to shoot, you're not scheduled to shoot until next week, but we were wondering, like, would you be ready to work today? And I said, let's go.
Wow.
Because at this point, I've already been like working on my lines, preparing, whatever it is, all that jazz. But we only had less than 10 hours. So with 2 camera units, 3 locations, and less than 10 hours, we shot random scenes. That, whatever that was, became a sizzle reel. That sizzle reel is what got us picked up.
No way. 'Cause I thought you guys might have been straight to series. That's what preparation. And not only that, I'm so grateful for your theater background and for you being honest about asking questions, because I think a lot of actors are scared to do so when they're coming just from television and film, and they don't have this great basis of school. They don't have the educational system of going through and doing a play for 3 months, 6 months, even 6 weeks.
Even
to
6 weeks,
understand how it is a fully collaborative process, and everybody plays an integral part. So then for you to be already in preparation.
I should also share that Pei Ling started out as a recurring guest.
I was going to ask that. And then when you got bumped to series regular.
Yeah. And then so I remember, like, when I got the call, I was just like, I remember we're in the height of COVID, and like my husband and I, we would take nightly walks around the park, and we just sit at a park bench and we're like having a little, like, mocktail or whatever, or a little cocktail, and we just sit there. And like Christina called, and so, and she was like, hey, I just want to want you to know that, we love you, and I'm, so happy that you're bored, and we love your work, and we would really love to offer you promote you to a series regular. And I was like, she was like, are you there? I go, yeah, is this good news? Yeah,
You'll be able to
I
pay
know,
your rent now at any time
right?
you want. Anytime you
Anytime.
want to pay it, you can pay it.
I was like, and I was so quiet. I was like, listen, I was like, I know outside I'm really quiet. That's how I process. But inside, I am like exploding. I'm exploding right now. And then so 6 months later, we all packed our bags and headed off to Vancouver. In like the height of COVID, borders are closed. My husband like stayed in New York. A lot of us like left all our partners behind. A lot of us did, and only came home during Christmas break.
Wow.
And we shot 13 episodes in the and did quarantine 3 times.
So it was like doing a play with
It was
cameras.
exactly. It was
You were
like,
at summer camp. Vanessa, this is great. I love that God's like, you know what? Go all in, and I'll baby step you into all of these great processes and all of these great
yep.
responsibilities. I'm going to get you to this point, and don't worry, I'm going to make your first television show also feel like what you've been doing. We're just going to make the whole world acquiesce to make this work out. But I mean, literally, when you see it like that and you see it stack up, of course you got to that landing, and that your preparation prepared you for that, and your curiosity and your ability to go fully in with both feet. I think this might be one of my favorite stories of hearing the resilience of being an actor, the service of being an actor, and the responsibility of being an actor, and not having outcome dictate what you want, and having your self-esteem now be derived from the work ethic. Like I can't tell you how much I love at the beginning. You were talking about how you didn't feel necessarily secure, but then once you decided to go all in, that it was about the service of the story, the service of the
Yeah.
plays, the service of the
Yeah.
messages that allows
Yeah.
you to even be a part of the play that like sets you up for
sure. I think I phrased this once in another interview, that like, you know, I it's easier for me to approach it this way, where I sort of, as an actor, it's not about, I'm just really using my skill set. Like, it's not about me, right? And it's easier for me to digest what I do that way than to think about it than it's me. And because then it's like, oh, it's like, then here, because then it's always going to be about you. It's always going to be about the other person. It's always going to be about the story. It's always going to be about your scene partner, you know? And that's easier. That's how I had digested it all these years.
Well, and I have to ask, because I ask people all the time, and I really
Please.
love your background. I'd be remiss not to ask it when you said
Mm,
I'm using my skills. So
mm.
now when you get an audition, your skill set is so deep. It's so many years. You've gotten the 10,000 hours, right? So every time you do an audition, I know it's a different approach because
Mm.
characters, different stories, different houses, like we're
100,
talking about.
100.
But what are some things that you would be willing to share that you do to approach your auditions, just the audition process? What
Just the
skills
audition process.
other than reading the script, which please God, read the script.
Please God, read the script.
Right? But then next part of the development of figuring out what house it is and how you're going to decorate it.
Do is the script. I then read. So I have to, if if we're fortunate enough to get a script, right? No, we're talking about film and TV. We're talking about plays, because in plays we always get a script.
Exactly. Let's do film and
right,
television because it's a harder
film and
audition process, I personally think. Because
it
you
is.
don't have
It is.
everything, like you said. You don't have this
You don't have
beautiful
everything.
structure of knowing
Right.
even beginning, middle, and end. Sometimes we
Right.
don't even have that.
Homework, homework, homework. So how I approach it, why did they choose this scene? So let's say if I don't get a script, right? And if there's a script, then okay, let's start again. If there is a script, I read, my first pass is, what is this script? What is the tone? Understanding there's a very specific momentum, and there's different like character structures and things like that, just breaking that down. But like first I'm like, oh, what is this? Then I do another pass about who are these other characters that live in this world, not just the one that I'm auditioning for. Then within that, as I go through the pass, I then figure out if there's a script, information about my character or the characters that my character is interacting with is going to be parceled out throughout the script. And these are all treasures. Do not take them for granted.
Yes.
Yeah. And because that's what it's information, whether when was she born, what happened in this moment before, what is it? It's all homework. Then some scripts are very specific style. So if I know who's producing it or who's like whatever, like these are just basic, like, oh, like, do they happen? And sometimes like a producer or writer can run the gamut, right? They can write anything. You're like, oh, okay, there is no template. Okay. All right, then that's fine. But then what I do with the breakdown of the specific sides that I get, if I'm fortunate enough and one of my friends are available, I love to have them read them with me. And what I like to do is that I like to hear them read them. And I don't,
you do the reverse, because I love doing that too, because you hear it differently. You're not focused.
I want,
yeah.
yeah. I first don't focus on my line. I focus on what they're saying. So then I have a better understanding of what is happening. And then comes like, oh, like, and then I realized that like a really, like, I've been quite fortunate. I feel like we all have, like, having really great writing, that sometimes the writing is so great. There's so much information that's packed into like 6 sentences that you're like, oh my God. And that could take hours. That could take hours. And then so I focus on that, of where the transition lies in that. If I do need to, I will rent a studio in New York, and I'll bring my tripod and I'll rent it for 4 hours. I'll bring food, I'll bring juice, I'll bring whatever, and I will work in that studio by myself. And as because it's rehearsal to me, and then before I get it on the tape, before I do anything like that. Yeah, so that's
I
just part and
love
parcel.
this. Thank you for walking through such a cohesive, comprehensive audition process.
It's really,
But it should be comprehensive.
yeah.
That's why you're working. That's why you've been given the responsibility you have. That's why people are going crazy over your character and the depth at which you bring to her. It's so true though. It is nuanced. It's layered. I was even going to ask the question, but after getting your research in television too, you're getting scripts left and right. So you might be creating some backstory. It's so great of you to have checked in with the showrunner to create that relationship beforehand. Hey, this is where I'm going. Because they could give you a script, script 7, and you're like, what? It's a totally different backstory than I've been building, but theater prepared you for that constantly.
Yeah.
So
And I feel like, you know what, I also feel we, and I say we as an entire cast of Kung Fu, are so fortunate to have such incredible showrunners, because they love their actors and they love the show, and they trust us to like know that when we're coming in with questions, they're, important. Like we're really curious, and so any questions that I've had about where this character was going, or what is this moment, I've reached out, and we've had long conversations via text or actual phone conversations, stuff like that, and every time, like, there's a new script. And what is also really great is that we have on-set writers who are representative of the people who are in the writers' room back in LA, of our bosses, of our showrunners. And then so, if while we're shooting something, if we don't understand the line or we don't know what's going on in the scene, and it's like, oh, it's something that could be broached on the day, then that's the onset writer is there. And I'd say, hey, listen, what is this moment, like, oh, there's what is this line, and like, I'm not quite sure about this, because they're the go-to. And then so like sometimes I'll be like, oh, like, the character of Pei-Ling, her accent was something that I actually had to work on, that I created.
I was going
And
to ask where the accent came from, and how, if it was something that you were able to pull from somebody that you knew, or you really put it together.
I put it together.
Well done.
Yeah. Thank
Kudos.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. It was an amalgamation of like, yes, she is from China. But this is a very specific style of story and the way that she speaks and the present time that she's in, you know, that we're all in. So that has helped inform and shape how she enunciates. And I made a decision early on that she doesn't speak in contractions.
I love that, because it gives an
And
elegance to her, and that's what, and I couldn't put my finger on it, and that's what it is. Ah,
she doesn't speak in contractions. But here's the thing, it's because of her
why?
accent.
Why? Yep.
Because if she speaks certain words with a contraction in her accent, then it can be misinterpreted as British.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So like I can't say
You can't say
it
can't.
is I can't say can't. I can't say she can't. It is easier. She cannot.
Yes. Oh,
Right. And it's like, and
genius.
so
Yeah.
there's more in that work, the lifting textually, and really honoring who she is and where she comes from, and not trying to reduce as much confusion as possible.
And did you talk to the writers about that? Did you let them know that that's what you wanted to do, or that? And so again, a
Yeah,
collaborative process, which is
collaborative
so
process.
theater processed. You're bringing, you're taking what's there and elevating it to the nth degree, and making the showrunner, making the writer, making everybody an equal playing field, because we're all trying to do the best work that we
We're
can.
we're all here together. We're all here together. We're all here together in Vancouver.
Right?
But yeah, no, that's what we did, and it's been, and I feel so fortunate. I am I feel so blessed, so fortunate that they care, that they care about us, and that yeah, it has been a really fantastic experience. I don't even know what to say. But yeah, I would say, but do you know that we got canceled?
Yes, but I feel like
Yeah,
everybody's in the canceling slaughter right now. So
it's
I'll be
true
so
story.
excited to see what your next thing is, where else you can, you are
Yeah,
such a dynamic force and such a talent. I'm so glad you put 2 feet in. Thank you.
thank you.
And thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing the gems that you have. This conversation was so beautiful, and just a full testimony to resilience and choosing yourself, really choosing
Thank you.
to be of service in this way. I'm so grateful. What is next? I like to,
What
even
is
if you don't
next?
have something on the horizon, I always like to say, where 2 or more are gathered, we can hold this intention for you. So what would you like to do next?
Oh, blessings. Blessings to you, Alyshia. Is that how I say your name?
Yeah.
Alyshia?
Yes.
Yes, okay. What is next? I will be helping to develop a new play.
Mhm.
I'm looking at my calendar.
Mhm.
Oh, it's tomorrow.
Wonderful. Yep.
Okay, I should have looked at that
You're
earlier.
welcome. Yeah, I'm
Uh,
glad you did.
Thanks.
Here for
That
you.
preparation is here.
Yeah.
I'm here for this. Yeah, so I'm going to be working on that this week. It's a new play for another for an off-Broadway theater company called Soho Rep. Um, Also, I've been quite inspired by being surrounded by such brilliant writers that I have been entertaining a couple of stories of my own, and I think that now would be a really good time for me to let's see where that goes. I've run those ideas with a few people, and they seem to think it has some potential. But we shall see, right? Because right now it's just we shall see. But yeah, so I think I want to try that, and yeah, I think that I've been out of town for a very long time, so I really want to uh fill my artistic cup, refill it. I want to see as many plays as I possibly can, musicals or plays off Broadway, off Broadway, off wherever
Oh,
it
yeah.
is. Readings, I love readings and love readings so
Yeah.
much. And yeah, I
And we'll
think
take
that
you to a good place. Where can
I'm taking
everybody
you a really good one.
follow along with you, so we can be cheerleading when all these good
Thank
things come
you.
to
Thank
fruition?
you so
Yes.
much. On Instagram, I am Vanessa Kai. I am also on Twitter, but I usually use it for live tweeting, but now I'm not much live tweeting. But if you would like to follow me there, I'm also Vanessa Kai. I do have a website, but like it's right now I'm working on it, but it's also called vanessakai.com. And there you have it. You might find me on Facebook somewhere there. I dabble.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your journey.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been, I'm so grateful that you reached out. I'm so grateful that you made time for me, for us, for this conversation. And I must say that I'm quite in awe and fascinated of you. I have also watched a bit of your work, and I think that you're freaking brilliant. I think that you're fantastic. I too have so many questions for you. But I feel like hopefully I look forward to following you on Instagram. I think I saw you there. And I will follow your podcast. I think that it's brilliant, and I think that like you're doing such a great service for so many people. So millions.
Oh my God.
Yeah.